Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The Grand Hall of the Interstellar Diplomatic Center buzzed with a cacophony of languages and sounds, a testament to the galaxy's diverse civilizations gathered under one roof. David Reynolds, an astrophysicist representing the Earth's scientific community, adjusted his translator device as he moved through the crowd, his eyes wide with the thrill of first contact. Beside him, his colleague and old friend, Marcus Lee, a cultural anthropologist, was already deep in conversation with a delegate from Andromeda, their laughter bridging any cosmic distance. David smiled at the ease with which Marcus navigated these waters. "David, you're missing out," Marcus called out, waving him over. "You've got to hear about their concept of time. It's not linear." Curiosity piqued, David joined them, shaking hands with the Andromedan, a tall figure with shimmering skin. "Fascinating," David replied, "we view time as irreversible, a constant flow. How do you perceive it?" The Andromedan, Theron, gestured fluently, a movement that captured their fluid relationship with time. "We see it as cyclical, with opportunities for intervention and change. It's all about perspective." The discussion was cut short as the room's attention turned to the arrival of the Sildavian delegation. The air shifted, the crowd parting as the Sildavians glided through, their movements graceful and measured. David's gaze was drawn to one figure in particular, a woman with luminescent eyes and a serene demeanor, her name badge identifying her as Alira. Marcus nudged him, whispering, "Now there's a story waiting to be told. Go on, make another first contact." Taking a deep breath, David approached her, extending a hand. "I'm David Reynolds, an astrophysicist. I'm really intrigued by your delegation. We know so little about Sildavia." Alira's hand felt cool and smooth in his, her grip firm. "I am Alira. It is a pleasure to meet someone dedicated to understanding the cosmos. What is it that you hope to learn?" Her voice was melodic, and even through the translator, David could sense a depth to her words. "I'd like to know how your civilization views the universe. What are your scientific principles?" Alira smiled, her eyes reflecting a thoughtful intensity. "Our principles are not just scientific, but also philosophical. We believe that the universe teaches us about harmony and connectivity. Perhaps I could show you some of our work?" "I would like that," David said. "And maybe I could share some of our theories in exchange. Tomorrow, perhaps?" "That would be agreeable," Alira nodded. As they conversed, Marcus joined them, introducing himself and adding his own insights into human cultural studies, weaving a narrative that highlighted similarities and differences between their cultures. As the evening wore on, David and Alira delved deeper into their respective fields, discussing everything from the nature of black holes to the cultural significance of celestial events. It was clear that this was the beginning of a fascinating exchange, one that might bridge their worlds in ways they hadn't yet imagined. As they parted for the night, Alira's parting words lingered in his mind, "Understanding is the first step towards unity." David walked back with Marcus, his mind racing with possibilities. "There's something incredible about this, Marcus. It's not just about science or discovery, but about creating a new understanding." Marcus clapped him on the back, grinning. "And to think, the night is just beginning. Who knows what the morning will bring?" The Cultural Exchange Center was abuzz with anticipation as David and Alira prepared to share their respective knowledge. They had arranged a small seminar, open to anyone interested in learning about Earth's history and Sildavian philosophy. The room was set with displays of human artifacts and holographic projections of Sildavian art. Marcus and another colleague, Dr. Henry Dam, a linguist specializing in alien languages, joined them early to help set up. Marcus was arranging the chairs while Henry checked the audio-visual equipment. "David, this is going to be fantastic," Marcus said, glancing around the room. "You've got a good turnout brewing here." Henry nodded, tapping his microphone. "And the tech seems cooperative today. We should be good to go without any hitches." David smiled, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Thanks, guys. I hope this goes well. Alira has brought some amazing insights from Sildavia." As the participants began to filter in, Alira approached David, her expression one of calm enthusiasm. "David, I am eager to begin. I believe our discussions today will provide valuable perspectives to both our peoples." David nodded, looking out over the crowd. "Let's start with a brief introduction from each of us, then we can dive into the specifics." The seminar began with David presenting a brief overview of human history, touching on key moments like the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. He used visual aids to highlight the impact of these eras on human thought and development. Alira took over, her presentation focusing on Sildavian philosophy, particularly their views on the interconnectedness of life and the universe. Her slides were filled with intricate art and symbols that captivated the audience. As they transitioned to a question-and-answer session, Marcus facilitated, fielding questions from the audience. One participant asked, "How do Sildavians handle conflicts, considering their philosophy?" Alira responded thoughtfully, "We believe in resolving conflicts through understanding and mediation. Our goal is always to find a balance that respects all parties involved." Henry, intrigued, followed up. "Could you elaborate on how language plays a role in your mediation processes?" Alira was pleased to explain, "Language is crucial. It conveys not just the factual content but also the emotional context. We have multiple dialects dedicated to different aspects of life, including conflict resolution." The seminar continued with more exchanges about cultural practices, scientific theories, and philosophical ideologies. David and Alira collaborated seamlessly, their mutual respect and fascination with each other's cultures evident to all. As the session wrapped up, David addressed the group, "Thank you all for coming. We hope this has been as enlightening for you as it has been for us." The participants applauded, many staying behind to ask more personal questions or to thank David and Alira for their insights. Once the room cleared, Marcus, Henry, and David helped Alira pack up her materials. Henry, reflecting on the day, commented, "This kind of dialogue is exactly what we need more of. It's not just educational, it's a foundation for a stronger interstellar relationship." Marcus agreed, "Absolutely, Henry. And who knows? This could be just the beginning of a long-term cultural exchange." David and Alira exchanged a look of agreement and hope, both understanding the potential of what they had started today. As they left the center, Alira said, "David, what we are building here could indeed be the start of something profound." Smiling, David replied, "I believe so, Alira. Let's see where this journey takes us." David and Alira decided to take their dialogue outside the confines of a seminar room, opting for a more relaxed setting in Central Park. The greenery and open sky provided a natural backdrop that seemed to encourage open conversation. They were joined by Dr. Thomas Reed, a colleague of David's specializing in extraterrestrial ecosystems. As they walked along a tree-lined path, Thomas was the first to break the ice. "Alira, I've heard much about Sildavia's environmental philosophy. Could you tell us how it influences your daily life?" Alira smiled, pleased to discuss her world. "Certainly, Thomas. In Sildavia, we live very closely with our environment. Our cities are designed to be part of the landscape, not on it. Everything from the food we eat to the homes we live in is influenced by our surroundings." David listened intently, his mind forming parallels with human environmental initiatives. "It's fascinating because there's a push on Earth for more sustainable living, but it sounds like you've integrated it much more deeply." "Yes, I've noticed this during my stay. It seems there's a lot of catching up to do here," Alira replied, her tone light but thoughtful. The conversation shifted as Thomas asked, "How do you deal with miscommunications in such a diverse ecosystem? Not just biologically, but culturally?" Alira thought for a moment before answering. "Language and communication are considered art forms on Sildavia. We learn from a young age to pay attention to nonverbal cues and to express ourselves in multiple forms. This sensitivity helps mitigate misunderstandings." David found himself nodding along. "That's something we could learn from. Often, we're so focused on the content of communication, we forget the context in the medium." As they reached a quiet pond, the trio sat on a nearby bench. Alira continued, "What about you, David? How do you think humans could better communicate with each other, and perhaps with us?" David chuckled slightly. "Well, we could start by really listening, not just waiting to speak. And maybe we need to embrace silence more often, as a part of the conversation and not just an absence of sound." Thomas added, "And I think our educational systems could put a stronger emphasis on cultural and environmental literacy from an early age." The discussion then turned to the practical applications of their ideas. Alira suggested, perhaps a joint educational initiative could be developed. Something that benefits both our species. David was quick to see the potential. "That's a brilliant idea. We could start with a series of interactive workshops and online courses that focus on communication, environmental stewardship, and cultural exchange." Thomas, always the pragmatist, questioned, "How would we structure it? And how do we ensure it's accessible to everyone?" Alira responded, "Accessibility can be achieved through technology. We have digital platforms in Sildavia that could be adapted for a wider audience. As for structure, it should be collaborative, evolving with feedback from participants." David, inspired by the productive conversation, concluded, let's draft a proposal. We can outline our objectives, the format, and potential outcomes. If we're going to do this, we should do it right. The afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park. As they stood to leave, the feeling of accomplishment mingled with the beauty of their surroundings. They had not only shared thoughts but had laid the groundwork for a meaningful project. Thomas, looking at both Alira and David, said, "This has been an incredible conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes." With smiles and nods of agreement, they made their way out of the park, each thinking about the next steps in what was shaping up to be a groundbreaking collaboration. David decided to invite Alira to his apartment for dinner, aiming to share a slice of human life and perhaps deepen their budding friendship. He spent the afternoon preparing, with the help of his friend and neighbor Eric, who was an amateur chef passionate about global cuisines. As they chopped vegetables in the kitchen, Eric quizzed David about his guest. "So, this Alira, she's from Sildavia, you said? What's their food like? Should we be trying to replicate that or stick to something earthly?" David laughed. "Stick to earthly, I think. I'm not sure I'm ready to try replicating alien cuisine. Let's go with something universally palatable. How about an Italian spread? Pasta, salad, and maybe some wine?" "Perfect," Eric agreed, expertly slicing tomatoes. It's hard to go wrong with Italian. Welcoming and familiar, just the vibe you want. Later, as they set the table, David explained more about Sildavia's cultural emphasis on connectivity and harmony, which intrigued Eric. "Sounds like they really have their act together. Makes you think about how we connect with our environment and each other." The doorbell rang, and David went to greet Alira. She entered, carrying a small, beautifully wrapped package. "A gift," she explained, handing it to David. "A traditional Sildavian token of appreciation for hospitality." "Thank you, Alira. That's very thoughtful of you," David replied, genuinely touched. The evening kicked off with casual drinks, Alira sipping a glass of wine while Eric served up a plate of bruschetta. Conversation flowed easily as they moved to the dinner table, where Eric served his homemade pasta. "So, Alira," Eric started, eager to join the cross-cultural exchange, "David tells me you discussed how Sildavians view the universe. How does that influence your daily decisions?" Alira thought for a moment before responding. "It is present in everything we do. For instance, our cities are built to be part of the natural landscape, not to dominate it. This respect for balance affects our architecture, our politics, everything." David nodded, adding, "It's really fascinating. Makes me think about how we can integrate some of those principles here on Earth." Dinner progressed with discussions about various aspects of human and Sildavian cultures. Eric was particularly interested in the environmental technologies Alira described, some of which could be revolutionary on Earth. As they cleared the table and moved to the living room for dessert, David turned the conversation to a more personal topic. "Alira, what's been the most surprising thing about your time on Earth?" Alira smiled, her eyes reflecting a mix of amusement and insight. "The diversity is staggering. On Sildavia, our differences are subtle, but here, they're so pronounced. Yet, there's a common thread of striving and aspiration that is quite compelling." Eric, who had been quietly listening, chimed in, "It's the human condition, I guess. Always reaching for something, whether we understand it or not." The discussion turned to lighter topics, such as music and entertainment, with David sharing some popular Earth music which Alira found surprisingly harmonic. The night ended with promises to meet again soon, Alira expressing her enjoyment of the meal and the company. As they said their goodbyes, David felt a warm sense of accomplishment. The evening had not only been a gesture of hospitality but also an opportunity to bridge worlds through the simple act of sharing a meal. Eric patted David on the back as they closed the door behind Alira. "Well done, man. I think you made more than just dinner tonight." David smiled, feeling that, in some small way, they had indeed made something quite significant. The Sildavian art exhibition was a vibrant fusion of cosmic motifs and earthy elements, hosted in a gallery downtown. David, accompanied by his friend and colleague, Simon, a cultural sociologist, was eager to see how Alira reacted to the display of her culture through the eyes of Earth's artists. As they entered the gallery, Simon, always keen to understand the nuances of cultural integration, remarked, "This should be quite enlightening. Seeing one's culture through another's lens can be very revealing." David nodded, scanning the crowd until he spotted Alira examining a series of holographic installations. "There she is. Let's see what she thinks." Approaching Alira, David greeted her with a smile. "Alira, this is my friend Simon. He's a sociologist and was very interested in coming today." "Pleased to meet you, Simon," Alira said, shaking his hand. I am curious to hear your thoughts on this exhibition. Simon, intrigued by the artwork, asked, what's your impression, Alira? Does it resonate with what you know of your culture? Alira looked around thoughtfully. It is a fascinating interpretation. Some aspects are quite insightful, while others are understandably misaligned. Art, after all, is a dialogue, not just a mirror. David and Simon followed as Alira led them through the exhibition, providing her perspective on various pieces. One particular installation caught Simon's eye: a dynamic sculpture representing Sildavian societal structures. Could you explain this piece to us? Simon asked, genuinely curious. Alira smiled, of course. This represents our societal belief in interconnectedness. Each strand is symbolic of an individual's life path, intersecting and supporting others. It's very close to our reality. David was impressed. It's remarkable how art can bridge understanding. We look at this and see a sculpture, but for you, it's a representation of life philosophy. They moved on to a section of the gallery showcasing traditional Sildavian garments adapted by Earth designers. Simon, always interested in the socio-cultural implications, noted, this crossover in fashion could be a soft power move, embedding Sildavian aesthetics into Earth's culture. Alira agreed. It is a gentle form of influence, isn't it? By wearing and embracing these designs, people can experience a part of Sildavia. Encouraged by the depth of the conversation, David suggested, why don't we collaborate on an article about this? We could explore how art fosters interstellar cultural understanding. Simon was enthusiastic. That's a fantastic idea. Alira, would you be interested in contributing from the Sildavian perspective? I would be honored, Alira replied, her eyes alight with the possibility of further bridging their worlds. As the exhibition wound down, the trio discussed potential themes and frameworks for their article. They agreed to meet again soon to outline their ideas more formally. Leaving the gallery, Simon reflected, today was more than just an exhibition visit. It feels like a step towards something greater. David felt the same. It's about understanding, isn't it? Through art, dialogue, and collaboration, we're really starting to see not just the differences but the commonalities. Alira, looking between the two friends, added, and perhaps that is the true art of living, to find harmony and diversity. With a shared sense of purpose, the three parted ways, each pondering the impact of the day and the potential of their upcoming collaboration. The exhibition had not only provided a visual feast but had sparked an intellectual and creative synergy that promised to extend well beyond the gallery walls. David's anticipation was palpable as the shuttle descended through the cerulean skies of Sildavia. Next to him, his longtime friend and fellow researcher, Michael, shared his excitement. They had been invited by Alira to experience her world firsthand, an opportunity they couldn't miss. As they disembarked, Alira greeted them with warm enthusiasm. Welcome to Sildavia, David, Michael. I hope your journey was comfortable. It was fascinating, Michael responded, looking around with wide eyes. The approach alone was worth the trip. David grinned, his gaze meeting Alira's. It's even more beautiful than you described, Alira. Alira beamed, pleased by their reactions. Let me show you some of the wonders of our planet. I believe you'll find the integration of our technology and nature particularly interesting. Their first stop was a nearby city that seemed to blossom directly from the landscape, its structures organically integrated with the natural environment. Alira explained, our cities are designed to ensure minimal disruption to the ecosystem. This harmony is central to our philosophy. Michael, ever the technophile, was fascinated. The architecture is incredible. It's like nothing on Earth. What kind of materials are these? They are composites developed from local flora and minerals. They're fully sustainable and have minimal environmental impact, Alira explained as they walked through vibrant streets. David, taking notes, added, this could have huge implications for sustainable development back on Earth. Do you think your government would be willing to share the technology? Alira nodded. That could be arranged. We're always open to sharing knowledge for mutual benefit. Their tour continued to a large park at the city center, where people of various ages mingled. Alira introduced them to some local residents, who shared stories of their daily lives and their cultural practices. As they sat down for a meal at a local eatery, the conversation shifted to the similarities and differences between their worlds. David was curious about the societal norms that govern Sildavia. How do you manage governance in such a diverse society? Alira took a sip of her drink before answering. Our government is based on a council system, where each sector has representation. It's about balance and ensuring every voice is heard. Michael, interested in the practical applications, asked, what about conflict resolution? With such diversity, Disagreements must be a challenge. Alira smiled, indeed, but our emphasis on communication and preventative diplomacy helps us address issues before they escalate. Plus, our education system emphasizes empathy and ethical communication from an early age. David was impressed. It's a holistic approach. We could learn a lot from that. Perhaps we could start an exchange program for students and professionals? That sounds like a promising idea, Alira agreed, her eyes lighting up with the prospect. As the day turned to evening, David and Michael thanked Alira for her hospitality and insights. Michael summed up their experience as they walked back to their lodging. Today was an eye-opener. The potential for collaboration is enormous. David nodded, his mind already racing with ideas and possibilities. I'm thinking of a series of collaborative projects. Maybe start with environmental technology and go from there. Alira, walking alongside them, was pleased. Let's make those plans concrete. I believe our worlds have much to gain from each other. As they reached their accommodations, the stars beginning to sparkle in the Sildavian sky, the three of them felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation for the future collaborations that lay ahead. This trip was just the beginning of what could be a transformative partnership. As their visit to Sildavia continued, David and Michael found themselves at Alira's family home, a charming structure harmoniously intertwined with its lush surroundings. Alira had invited them for a traditional Sildavian evening, eager to show them more of her culture beneath the starlit sky. "Welcome to my home," Alira said as she led them through a verdant garden. "Tonight, we'll enjoy some traditional music and storytelling. It's a way for us to connect with our ancestors in the cosmos." Michael, intrigued by every new experience, was quick to engage. "I've read about your musical instruments. They're quite unique, aren't they?" "Yes, they are crafted to resonate with the natural frequencies of our planet," Alira explained. "You'll hear them tonight. Each note is meant to harmonize with the soul." As they settled in the garden, surrounded by flickering lanterns, a group of musicians began to play. The music was ethereal, filling the air with a melody that seemed to weave through the very essence of the surroundings. David was deeply moved by the performance. "This is incredible, Alira. It's like the music speaks a universal language." Alira smiled, pleased at their appreciation. "It's meant to. Music is another form of communication here, one that transcends words." The conversation gently shifted towards personal reflections, prompted by the intimate setting and the soft melodies. Michael, feeling reflective, shared, "This trip has changed my perspective significantly. There's so much we don't know, so much we can learn from each other." David nodded in agreement. "And there's so much potential for what we can accomplish together. Alira, what you've shared with us. It's more than just knowledge. It's a new way of seeing the world." As the music faded into a soft close, Alira turned to them with a serene look. "Would you like to try some stargazing? Our astronomical techniques are quite different from yours. I think you'll find it interesting." With a telescope set up by Alira, they took turns peering into the cosmos, with Alira pointing out celestial features significant to Sildavian culture and folklore. David, ever the scientist, was fascinated by the new constellations, each with its own story. "It's amazing how your people have intertwined astronomy with cultural narratives," David remarked, his gaze still fixed on the stars. Alira laughed lightly. "The stars are our elders, our guides. They tell us where we've been and hint at where we're going." As the evening grew deeper, Michael suggested, "We should document these stories. Maybe write a paper or a book on the interplay between Sildavian astronomy and culture. It could be a valuable resource for both our peoples." Alira agreed enthusiastically. "That would be a beautiful project. Combining our views could lead to new insights, bridging our worlds even further." The night ended with a feeling of camaraderie and a shared desire to collaborate on projects that would intertwine their cultures and knowledge even more deeply. As they said their goodnights, Alira's parting words resonated with both David and Michael. "Let's look to the stars not just for guidance, but as a reminder of our shared journey in this vast universe." Walking back to their accommodations under the canopy of the Sildavian night, David felt a profound sense of connection and purpose, energized by the potential of their combined futures. David and Michael stood at the Sildavian spaceport, preparing for their journey back to Earth. Their time on Sildavia had been transformative, filled with new understandings and friendships that promised to extend beyond the stars. As they checked in for their flight, David turned to Michael. "You know, leaving feels a bit bittersweet. There's so much more to explore and learn here." Michael, hauling his luggage onto the conveyor, nodded. "Absolutely. But think about all the projects we're taking back with us. This is just the beginning, David." Alira joined them shortly, her presence a comforting reminder of the bridges they had built. I'm glad you both feel enriched by your visit. Remember, this is not goodbye, only a brief pause until we meet again." David smiled. "We're already planning our next visit, Alira. And we're looking forward to welcoming you to Earth again." The trio moved to a quieter corner of the bustling spaceport. David pulled out a small datapad. "Here's the outline for the joint educational program we discussed. Michael and I have some ideas on how to integrate Sildavian philosophy with human technology studies." Alira reviewed the document, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "This looks fantastic. I'll share it with our educational council as soon as I get back. They'll be excited to see such innovative collaboration." Michael chimed in, "And I've started drafting the proposal for our environmental technology exchange. I think we can make significant advancements by combining our resources and knowledge." Alira nodded appreciatively. "I agree. The synergy between our technologies could lead to sustainable solutions that neither of our planets could achieve alone." As they discussed their plans, a loudspeaker announcement reminded them of the impending departure. Alira looked at both men, her expression earnest. "David, Michael, you've brought such hope and possibility to us. Thank you for being so open and committed to this partnership." David clasped her hand, his voice sincere. "Thank you, Alira, for everything. We're not just taking back memories and souvenirs, but powerful ideas and the promise of a shared future." The final boarding call echoed through the spaceport, and the men gathered their belongings. As they headed toward the departure gate, Michael looked back at Alira, who was still waving. "David, let's make sure the momentum doesn't slow down. We've got a lot to do when we get back." "Absolutely," David agreed. "Let's hit the ground running. There's much to be done, and I can't wait to get started." With one last wave to Alira, they boarded their shuttle, the spacecraft a symbol of the journey yet to come. As the shuttle ascended, David gazed through the window at the receding planet, a beautiful, vivid world that had changed him forever. Back on Earth, as they disembarked, the familiar sights and sounds of home were imbued with a new sense of purpose. David and Michael were greeted by their colleagues, eager to hear about the trip and the forthcoming collaborations.